Hello friends, this is CA Karun Nagpal. In this video, we would be talking about the impairment of assets Ind AS 36. Ind AS 36 is a part of IBBI registered valuer examination syllabus. There are 4 accounting standards in total. So in this video, particularly, we will be talking about Ind AS 36. So let us start with Ind AS 36. The objective of this standard is to ensure that the assets are not carried at more than the recoverable amount. What is recoverable amount? Recoverable amount is the amount which you expect to recover from the use of an asset, or the fair value less cost to sell. So two items are there. One is the expected amount you would be able to recover by use of an asset, or the market value or the fair value less cost to sell of the asset. So higher of the two will become the recoverable amount. If your asset is more than the recoverable amount, you will have to book an impairment. This standard specify the procedure to be followed to book an impairment and to determine the recoverable amount, and under what circumstances impairment once booked can be reversed, and it specify the disclosure to be made. What is the scope of this standard? This standard is applicable to all the assets except for the following. So inventories, Ind AS 2 is not included, not covered. Ind AS 115, revenue from contracts with customer, deferred tax assets. Ind AS 12, employee benefit. Ind AS 19, agricultural assets. So under Ind AS 41 and Ind AS 109, financial instruments. Insurance contract, so certain deferred acquisition cost, etc. under Ind AS 104, and then Ind AS 105 in case of discontinued operation or classification as held for sale. So these all items are not covered, these are excluded from the scope of this standard. Rest all the assets are covered. Then coming to the definitions. So what is carrying amount? Carrying amount is the amount at which the asset is recognized after deducting any depreciation or amortization. So depreciation, you know it. Amortization, in case you have procured something, some bond or debenture at a price less price or higher price, you amortize to arrive at the face value of that bond at maturity. So that you do regular amortization. So adjust the carrying amount, the original cost with the amortization, that will be carrying amount. And in case you have any previously recognized impairment loss, adjust that as well to arrive at the carrying amount. So in case carrying amount is higher than the recoverable amount, book an impairment. Then the next definition is cash generating unit. This is the smallest identifiable group of assets. Suppose, for example, you have a factory. In your factory you have a machinery, and that machinery you are unable to identify the recoverable amount of that machinery, because your particular machinery, you are unable to assess the cash flows from that particular machinery. As a factory as a whole, you are able to generate the cash flow. So your factory will become the cash generating unit in that case. Then the next definition is impairment loss. So as we have discussed, if the carrying amount exceeds the recoverable amount, you will have to book an impairment loss, that is treated as impairment loss, and immediately you will have to recognize that impairment loss in P&L. Recoverable amount is the higher of two. First one is the value in use, and the second one is fair value less cost to sell. We will understand how to compute the value in use and fair value less cost to sell. Then moving further, first of all we have to identify the whether the asset is impaired or not. So for that we will compare the carrying amount with the recoverable amount. If the carrying amount is higher than the recoverable amount, that means there is a need to book an impairment. So impairment testing has to be done at each reporting period. For some of the assets it has to be done annually, or in case some event has triggered the impairment testing. So these are the indicators for impairment testing. There may be internal or external indicators. For example, if there is a sudden decline in the market value, that is external indicator. Increase in the interest rate, carrying amount is greater than the market capitalization. Significant change maybe in terms of technology, in terms of regulatory changes, so you will have to consider that for impairment. And internal factors may be obsolescence or damage in particular asset or some machinery, or some of your operations got discontinued, or some kind of restructuring. Those would be the internal factor. Then in case of some kind of reporting evidence, some audit observations and all, internal audit, some fraud is detected, so those are the internal factors. Then we have to do the annual impairment testing for these particular items. So intangible assets who have indefinite useful life, annual testing is mandatory. Intangible assets, those are not yet available for use but are under production, you will have to test that for impairment. Goodwill acquired in a business combination, you will have to test the goodwill for impairment. Then moving further, measuring the recoverable amount. Recoverable amount, as we have discussed, is the higher of value in use and fair value less cost to sell. So value in use is the present value of estimated future cash flow to be derived from any asset or cash generating unit in case your asset is not able to generate the cash flow. Assuming that you will use your asset till the terminal point, till the end of its life. And fair value less cost to sell, so fair value is determined as per Ind AS 113. So the amount that you would be able to obtain by selling an asset at an arm's length price, should not be between the related party or under distress. So at arm's length price, if you are able to get something, so there are different approach are covered under Ind AS 113. So determining the fair value, how to determine the fair value, you can watch 113 video. Less the cost of disposal directly related to that particular asset or cash generating unit. So higher of these two will become the recoverable amount. Then value in use will take into account the cash inflows from continuing use of assets, assuming that you will use the assets till the end of its life, and the projection for outflow also, some expense you will have to incur, maybe of maintenance for your machinery and all, so which are directly allocated or attributed to that particular asset or cash generating unit, you will have to take into account. And then the terminal value of your asset, so after the use of after the end of its useful life, you will have to take into account. So you estimate all the projections, cash inflows and outflow, and adjust that, discount that to arrive at the present value, to arrive at the value in use. So value in use shall not include the projections like future restructuring. If you are planning to have a future restructuring, you should not include. So any improvement or enhancement in the asset performance, you should not consider that upfront. Cash inflow from financing activities, suppose you are planning to have take some loan to expand, so you should not ignore that. Or income tax receipts and payments, you should ignore that. And in case of foreign currency cash flows, the spot exchange rate is to be taken for determining the value in use. Let us take an example here to understand it better. So Global Bank Limited is reviewing one of its big business segment, that is commercial banking, for impairment. The carrying amount of the net asset of the commercial banking segment is 100 million. The management of the bank has produced two computations for fair value for value in use. The first one is 90 million, which excludes the benefit to be derived from future reorganization. But the second one is 120 million, which include the benefit of future reorganization. So as we have already discussed that we will ignore the future reorganization impact while determining the value in use. There is no active market for the sale of business segment, so fair value is not determinable. So recoverable amount will be, in this case, will be 90, because we cannot take the future reorganization benefit. 90 will become the recoverable amount, and the carry value of the segment is 100 million. So 10 million will become the impairment loss. So here in this case, the carrying amount of the net assets of commercial banking is 100 million. Value in use will be the recoverable amount, as the active market is not there and fair value is cannot be determined. Value in use shall be 90 million, which shall be deducted from the carrying amount, and the impairment will be 10 in this case. Then the second part of recoverable amount is fair value less cost of disposal. So fair value is the price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly market between market participant at a measurement date. You can refer to Ind AS 113 video to understand the fair value measurement better. So once you determine the fair value, there are three multiple approach: cost, income, and market approach. So based upon those approach, you determine the fair value as per Ind AS 113, and then the cost of disposal. So any cost of disposal excluding the finance and income tax expense like selling for transportation or transaction cost, you would have to subtract that from the fair value to arrive at the fair value less cost of disposal. Let us understand it better with the help of an example. ABC Limited provides the following estimate of cash flow related to one of its cash generating unit. The company discount rate is 10%, and the cash inflows for the year 2021, 2021 and 22 and 2022 and 23 are projected to be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. During the year 2021-22, the company would have an outflow of 500 million. So we will have to also take into account the outflow. The carrying amount of the asset as on the date of impairment testing, which is 31st of March 2020, is 7,50,000. Okay. Fair value less cost of disposal is 6,50,000. So fair value less cost of disposal is given. We will have to compute the value in use here. So let us understand how to compute the value in use. So carrying amount is given in the question 7,50,000, and recoverable amount will be higher of value in use and fair value less cost of disposal. Fair value less cost of disposal is 6,50,000, which is given. Value in use will be the cash flows for 3 years are given, and the discount factor, which is 10%, is also given. We will discount those cash flows, and we will also take into account the 500 outflow, and we will arrive at the value in use with the exchange rate, spot exchange rate. So the impairment loss will be carrying amount less the recoverable amount. The recoverable amount will be higher of value in use and fair value loss cost of disposal, which is 6,50,000. We will deduct the, because here the carrying amount is higher than the recoverable amount, so we will deduct and arrive at the impairment loss. Let's take an example again. XYZ Limited is an automobile manufacturer, and which is having an assets carried in the balance sheet on 31st March 2020 at 200 million, including a revaluation reserve of 20 million. So that means revaluation, the asset was revalued earlier, and the revaluation reserve of 20 million is there. As at date, value in use is 150 million, and the fair value is 180, and the cost of disposal is 10. So fair value less cost of disposal, so will be 170, and the value in use will be 150. Higher of these two will be 170. So recoverable amount here will become 170 million. So let us look at the solution. So carrying amount 200 million clearly, recoverable amount 170, higher of these two, this and this, 170, 150, 170 will become the recoverable amount. Impairment loss will be 30 million. Now, since the asset was already revalued earlier and we had a revaluation surplus of 20 million, and now we have determined that the loss is 30 million. So up to 20 we will take it to the other comprehensive income, and the remaining 10 million to be recognized in P&L, right? So moving forward, Now identifying the cash generating unit, if it is not possible to estimate the recoverable amount of an asset, so you would have to identify the lowest aggregation of assets that generate the independent cash flow. Suppose for example you have a plant and in that plant you have a particular machinery, and your machinery is not able to, you are not able to identify the independent cash flows for that particular machinery. So in that case you will have to determine the cash flow for that plant as a whole. That will be treated as a cash generating unit, and cash generating unit will become the smallest group of asset which generates cash independently. Then in that case we will determine the recoverable amount of the cash generating unit as a whole to test it for impairment. Now allocation of goodwill. For the purpose of impairment testing, goodwill acquired in a business combination shall be allocated to CGU. Suppose you have made some acquisition in the past and in your balance sheet you have this goodwill. So you would have to allocate that goodwill to all of your cash generating unit. So most of the companies have do segment reporting, and they treat this segment as a cash generating unit, and they allocate the goodwill to those segments. So for allocating the goodwill, each unit or group of units shall represent the lowest level within the entity at which goodwill is monitored for internal management purposes. So you will have to allocate that way, and should not be larger than the operating segment. Goodwill should not be larger than the operating any operating segment itself. Where the goodwill is allocated in case of disposal of operations, so in case of a disposal, so you will have to include the goodwill in the carrying amount of that particular operation. You would have to first allocate the goodwill and then include in the carrying amount to determine the gain or loss on disposal of that particular operations. Then allocating the impairment loss in case you have impaired the cash generating unit. So how to allocate the impairment loss within the assets which are within the cash generating unit. So first of all you would have to recognize the impairment loss in goodwill and allocate it to goodwill, and eliminate goodwill, bring it to nil. Then to the other remaining asset of the unit on a pro rata basis on the carrying amount of each of the assets. On the carrying amount, on the basis of carrying amount of each asset, you will have to bring it down, allocate the impairment loss. After this allocation, the carrying amount of individual asset should not get reduced to the higher of the following. Suppose for example fair value less cost of disposal, you can measure it for asset, or value in use you can measure it for asset. So it should not go beyond the higher of these three. So you cannot reduce any asset below 0, right? These reduction in the carrying amount shall be treated as impairment loss for individual asset. So whatever you arrived at, the total impairment loss, first of all allocate to goodwill, then to the remaining assets on the basis of the carrying amount, and make sure that your asset should not go beyond higher of these three items. That will be treated as the impairment for each of the individual assets. Let us understand this allocation with the help of an example here. ABC Limited has a cash generating unit, a manufacturing plant as on 1st of April 2020. And the carrying amount of that plant is 120 million, out of which asset A has carrying value 60, B has 40, and the goodwill has 20 million. So total 120 million. The recoverable amount is 70 million. So how we will calculate the impairment loss? Let us understand. Carrying amount we know 120 million, recoverable amount 70 million. We have arrived at impairment loss will be 50 million here. So first of all, this 50 should be allocated to goodwill. 20 million we have to eliminate the goodwill, balance on the basis of the carrying amount 60 and 40. So balance 30 million will be divided in 6:4 ratio, 18 and 12. This is how we have to allocate the goodwill to each of the assets in the CGU. Now we understand how to book an impairment, and then impairment loss can also be reversed. So let us understand under what circumstances it can be reversed. impairment loss for previously recognized for prior periods can be reversed except for goodwill. So goodwill loss cannot be reversed. So impairment which was done in goodwill cannot be reversed in any case. And reversal is possible to the extent of increase in the recoverable amount. So if your carrying amount has become less and recoverable amount has gone higher, so you can reverse the impairment loss, but it should not exceed the carrying amount before impairment. So we will understand this with the help of an example. And the reversal should be recognized in P&L in case the asset was revalued earlier or there is a revaluation reserve. So in that case you will have to follow the accounting standard, respective accounting standard. And in case of reversal, after the reversal you will have to recompute the depreciation and amortization for the residual remaining period. Then reversal of impairment in case of cash generating unit. So again, reversal can be done except for the goodwill, and it should be done on the pro rata basis, on the basis of carrying amount, and the carrying amount of an asset shall not to be increased above the lower of the recoverable amount of, or the carrying amount that would have been determined had no impairment loss been recognized for the assets in prior period. And the impairment loss recognized for goodwill shall not be reversed in subsequent periods. So clearly goodwill, whether in case of CGU or standalone, impairment loss cannot be reversed for particularly for goodwill. So let us understand with the help of an example. Pfizer Pharma Limited purchased an asset 100 million on 1st of April 2016. It has useful life of 4 years with no residual value. The recoverable amount of the asset is 60 million, 40 million and 28 million in 2017, 18 and 19 respectively. So now you are required to compute the impairment loss or reversal, if any, for these 3 periods. So let us understand how we will compute the impairment and reversal of impairment. So in the first year we have opening balance 100 million and we will determine the depreciation. So residual life is 4 years is the life of the asset and residual value is nil. So 100 divided by 4 year is the life. So 25 will be the depreciation. Then 75 will be the carrying amount, and the recoverable amount is given in question, which is 60. So now we will compare this with the carrying amount, and since the recoverable amount is less than the carrying amount, 15 is the impairment loss which shall be booked, and the revised carrying amount will be 60. 60 will become the next year opening balance, and now you will have to again determine the depreciation or amortization. So 60 divided by remaining life is now 3 years. 60 divided by 3, 20. Now 20 will be the depreciation and carrying amount will be 40. Recoverable amount given in the question is 40 again, so no impairment, nil impairment, and the closing carrying amount will be 40. That will be carried forward further. Now there is no need to determine the depreciation again, so it will be continued 20, and then the 20 will be the carrying amount, and then recoverable amount is 28, that is which is given in the question. Now impairment loss reversal which can be 8 million, but in this case question says that you cannot reverse an impairment, it cannot go beyond the carrying amount had there been no impairment loss. Had there been no impairment loss, the carrying amount would have been 100 minus 25 for 3 years, that is 75. 75 depreciation, 25. So you cannot go beyond 25, that is which is the carrying amount now. So you cannot make the carrying amount to 28, you will have to keep the carrying amount to 25. And the reversal of impairment for the 2019 shall be only 5 million, right? Then finally we have the disclosure. So amount of impairment loss, whether recognized in P&L or OCI, whether recognized or reversed, to be disclosed in the financial statement. Segment information for each reportable segment has to be reported. For individual assets, so you have to disclose that the event that led to the impairment loss, the circumstances which triggered the impairment loss, and why the impairment loss is recognized or reversal also in case, what are the circumstances you will have to specify, and your basis of determining the recoverable amount. If the recoverable amount is fair value less cost of disposal, so you will have to tell the fair value hierarchy. So whether it is level 1, the inputs are market observable or unobservable input you have used to arrive at the fair value, and the valuation techniques you have to specify, and in case you have used the income approach and you use the present value technique, so you will have to disclose the discount rate as well. And if the recoverable amount is value in use, you will have to disclose the discount rate you have used to arrive at the value in use, and on the basis on which you have determined the projections and all. That's all I have in this video. I will be coming up with a separate video on financial instrument and business combination. Till then, stay tuned and have a good day.